Welcome into the Skinny Podcast. It's the weekly Potpourri edition. I'm Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital sports columnist and editor with Rick Brewing. As always, it's presented by Blake, the attorney Mason. We got some Bengals to talk about. Oh, do we have some Bengals to talk about? We have a narrative trading for a washed-up quarterback to talk about that just is driving me up the wall. The Reds doing Reds-like things, getting your hopes up and then trying to quash them all in one fell swoop, but still having hope because you can't kill them off and they're still alive for the playoffs. We got a college football segment, because we didn't have college football locally this past weekend other than Miami losing to UNLV. And, of course, our betting segment and a hashtag AskSkinnyAnything where you can go to the Twitterverse, ask me a question on any topic. I am happy to answer that. Rick, we got so much to get to and so much time, so let's get to it.
Yeah, the Bengals lost the Vikings 48-10 on Sunday. They lost the turnover battle 5-0 in that game. It was the most lopsided margin of defeat for a Bengals team in franchise history, Skinny. What do you make of the way they rolled over in that game? I've been listening to all the different talk shows out there, the podcasts, social media narratives. I've heard a lot of different things. Is it a team of guys licking their wounds and feeling sorry for themselves because Burrow was out? Is it a group of guys who didn't believe in Jake Browning? Is it a group of guys who have such little respect for Zach Taylor that they just quit on him and didn't seem to focus and care about that game? I've heard a lot of takes. What is your takeaway from it all?
I don't think they quit. That's an easy narrative, right? The two drives in the second half, I mean, they did get steamrolled, but I don't think it's a good defense against the run. So there's that. I don't think it's a matter of quitting. They're just not very good.
What did you make of the fumble situation when you're fumbling the ball like 3 times in 3 drives or whatever it was?
How many times have you watched Samaje Perine fumble? Not much.
Very rare. And they broke his thumb to do it, too. That's the other
Correct.
problem. Yeah.
Jamar Chase had fumbled 5 times in his career before he lost the fumble. I don't know Noah Fant well enough to know if he's a fumbler. He's probably not. Good old reliable veteran. So 3 guys who you don't count on. That's not quitting. That's just that's sometimes happenstance, circumstance in the NFL. Weird stuff happens in the NFL. How do you account for Atlanta going into Minnesota the Sunday night before, winning 22-6, then losing to Carolina 30-0? How do you account for the Baltimore Ravens scoring 40 points and 30 points in 2 different games this year and losing them both? The NFL's weird, man. It's weird. I'm not here to tell you the Bengals don't have issues, and we're going to get to some of those issues. But that turnover thing was just a snowball, and it's inexplicable. And I think that's where everybody tries to have hot takes of explaining it. There's no explaining. It's just the NFL. I mean,
I think that's probably right.
What's that?
I think that's probably right. But Skinny, you just mentioned it's 3 guys who don't typically fumble. For all of them to fumble in short succession like that, couldn't you give some credence to the idea that like maybe there is a little bit of a wind out of their sails situation where guys are like, man, we're not moving the ball at all. We can't run the ball. Joe's not here. Like there's a little bit of a letdown type thing going on there potentially, a little bit of lack of focus, something.
Noah Fant had the ball taken away from him. That dude had the day of his life, Isaiah Rodgers. Again, Jamar doesn't fumble, but he fumbled. To your point, they broke Samaje's thumb to make him fumble. I mean, so some of it's just inexplicable stuff that happens in the NFL. Again, we're going to get to the issues they have, and there are issues. There's no question about that, and the main one being the run game at the moment. So, no, I think Jake Browning said it best, and no one has to believe this. It is only 1 loss. I mean, that's all it counts for. It feels like it's like the season just caved in the matter of about 15 minutes, yeah. Right? The end of the first half, beginning of that season is done. It's caved in. Okay, maybe it will, and it still has a chance to, without question, because – I mean, it's hard for me to look to a path to them winning the next handful of games based on who they're playing and where they're playing them. But, a 15-minute scenario shouldn't define a whole season. A whole season should define a season. I get people's panic. I do. But I explain it away. It's just the NFL is weird. How do you explain Green Bay, arguably the chic pick to win a Super Bowl? I pick them to win the Super Bowl. Going to Cleveland and losing a 10-point lead with 4 minutes to go. How do you explain that? You can't.
Joe Flacco.
Right, Joe Flacco. That's what happened.
Yeah, Joe Flacco happened. He's elite. People forget that.
Here's one thing. How do you explain all the block kicks in the NFL on Sunday? A league where you don't have very many block kicks, and yet you had some significant block kicks that were the Cleveland blocked the field goal. The Philly one to end the game and get the cover. The Jets blocking a field goal and returning for a touchdown. The NFL can be weird at times, and this past Sunday was weird.
I think what this game showed, though, is there are a lot of people who are trying to put on a brave face. We still got a chance. We're 2-0. Jake Browning might be good enough with all these weapons around him to still get this thing done. And most of them didn't really believe what they were saying. Because as soon as things went south for a few minutes, people completely lost their minds and turned on it. So I think
Yeah.
that kind of tells you where they were actually at confidence-wise.
No, the part that is distressing is the fact that they just can't run the ball. And I don't know what the answer is to fix that. We've seen it before. They've changed schemes. They've gone from wide zone to pin and pull. They've done different. Went to RPOs that one year, which was pretty effective to get the run game going. I don't know what the answer is this time around. I really don't, because this is 3 games now where they just can't run it and outs. And that's where I know now the manager, Jake Browning sucks, always knew he sucked. No, put a lot of quarterbacks in that scenario. Hell, go back to week 1. Bengals couldn't run the football up in Cleveland other than the first drive. How'd Joe Burrow do up there? He looked great, didn't he? He looked like all pro Joe. No, he didn't. So if you can't run the ball in that environment, where that place, I'm telling you, I love that place. It's a kind of a open air press box, so you hear the noise just like everybody else does, and I mean it rocks. Jake Browning's first half, I don't have it in front of me, but he faced, I believe, 7 third downs in the first half. None were shorter than 5 yards to go. Yeah. You get in that environment with 3rd and 5 plus on a consistent basis, you're going to struggle. So the answer to me, they got to figure out a way to fix the run game, and I wish I had an answer for you because I don't.
Well, and that was their MO coming into that game. I think Tony Romo repeated it 1,000 times that like 3rd and 7 or longer or something like that. They had not given up a single one yet this year until the Bengals got one
in the second half.
That game. But yeah, it was. I mean, they were talking about that constantly throughout the broadcast, and it was kind of funny because like at the end, Romo just rambles when there's space to fill. He just has to say something, and it's a 48-10 game, and they're just filling time, and he says, styles make fights, and this wasn't a good style matchup for the Bengals or something along those lines. And at that time, it's laughing because it's like Jake Browning's in there at quarterback struggle. Actually, they had already switched quarterbacks by that point, but the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow anymore. They're getting stomped out. It's a complete blowout. And you say something like that, it sounds like kind of funny. But I actually think there was some truth to it, to your point of like, this was one of the worst possible teams in terms of the style they were going to play, their strengths against the Bengals' weaknesses. To be trying to implement a new quarterback and get yourself going and get on the right track, this was a very tough place and team for them to try to do that against. Now, that being said, do you think the margin of defeat makes the front office rethink their plan at all about, we're confident in Jake, we're moving forward with Jake? Do you think there's been any, no, we need to do something drastically different here?
I don't. No, I don't. I don't at all. I think they believe Jake Browning is going to win games for them. The thing is, Joe Burrow can go win games. I guess for Jake, it's just don't go lose games. And can you argue, did Jake lose it with the pick 6? Maybe. But, I mean, do I want to get you rid of Jamar Chase because he fumbled? I mean, there's so much finger of blame to point in this game that I just think you collectively go, watch the film, make the corrections, and then blow it up and forget about it because it's one of 17 games. The thing is, you can't let that performance linger. And I think that's the takeaway for me.
I think you can do that with most of it, but it doesn't feel like the running problems are going away. It doesn't feel like they're going to be able to snap their fingers and all of a sudden be able to run the ball. Is that just an offensive line stinks problem?
It's an offensive line coach stinks problem. I mean, he was the offensive line coach for a last team in the league last year running the football as well. I mean, it's a consistent issue over the last few years with the run game. I mean, what they've done is, and I get it, they've basically gone and gotten a bunch of pass blockers because what is their main thing they want to do is what?
Pass the football. Let Joe play with empty.
Right. So here's the problem that you have at the moment, unfortunately. Orlando Brown Jr. looks washed up. I'm sorry for that. I like the guy. He's a good guy. I think the signing was the right signing. He got hurt last year. He doesn't look right. He looks awful. All-pro, world Dalton Risner that everybody was pounding on the stump for stinks. I mean, God love him. He's on the street for a reason. He stinks. Marius Smith is barely into his 2nd season of playing. Ted Karras doesn't look very good. I think the only reason they extended him is they don't have a center in the pipeline. And Dylan Fairchild's a rookie. There's your offensive line. And I go back to the thing from last week. Everybody talks about they keep neglecting the offensive line. No, they haven't. They signed Orlando Brown Jr. Any of you listening to this podcast who did not want Orlando Brown Jr. signed, raise your hand. Don't see any hands raised. Isn't that interesting? Anybody who thinks that drafting Marius Mims was the wrong thing, raise your hand. Okay. Right guard, yeah, it's issue. Lucas Patrick, the couple of drives he was in, the best running drive they've had this year, guess who the right guard was? Lucas Patrick. Do they miss him?
Maybe. But look, I think there is a difference between they have addressed it in previous years, which I said last week's podcast. I think they haven't. It's a lazy narrative to say that they haven't tried with the offensive line, because they absolutely have gone out and landed big name free agencies. They've gone against their typical MO of how they operate in the offseason to do things like that ever since the Super Bowl year. But this past year, they didn't do that with the offensive line. They did avoid it. And I think there were legitimate reasons for that. You're paying a bunch of other positions. You're trying to negotiate high value contracts with T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. Right. And there's a lot going on. And there are legitimate reasons for why maybe they didn't do it. But I do think it's fair to say this is the year that they really left themselves a disaster on the offensive line.
Did they, though? Again, you have Orlando Brown Jr., who is a Pro Bowl player. You like Ted Karras. You have a first-round right tackle. You drafted a third-round left guard. That's a premium draft pick, in my opinion. Okay, can we agree on right guard? Sure. Was Lucas Patrick a meh? I don't know. I think he was their best run blocker. And now he's out, and all I heard was, gotta go. Why haven't they signed Dylan Reisner or Dalton Reisner? Well, you know why? You're seeing why.
Yeah, and that's fair. The whole Dalton Reisner thing, I think everyone knew he's not great. I do think there was an argument to maybe try to bring him earlier than the week before the season started, and maybe that would give him a fighting chance out there if he wasn't going to be good to begin with.
What was he asking for price wise? If it was too much and you said, no, that price point isn't going to work it didn't work for anybody else in the league. He was on the street for a reason, man.
Right. It's hard for me to believe the amount that they saved was worth it now, especially that Joe Burrow sitting on the sideline. But whatever. I mean, that's not the end of the world, and that's not the decision that defined their offseason or this team. But I do think going into this year, there was an obvious hole that they needed at least one more lineman. They didn't go out and fill that issue. And in addition to that, you also had okay, now this guy, maybe Orlando Brown's falling off. Ted Karras isn't as good as he was even the last few years, and that wasn't great to begin with. And these young guys do stink. So you already had the hole you didn't address, and then other things started going wrong, and it left you with the disaster. And that is what happens when you don't prioritize things and draft them. But to your point, this was the first year that they didn't really do that. I think they've done a good job of trying to do their best and put as much resources as they can while still having a really talented offense around that offensive line.
I believe I read this stat last week. This was, I think, going into week 3, so I don't think it includes week 3. But I think the highest priced free agent guard, and I can't remember who it was, is actually ranked last in PFF grade. I mean, that tells you how inexact this stuff is, man. It's just so. I go back to, is this schematics in the run game? Is it really just the offensive line is that bad that they aren't really run blockers because they're drafting for the pass? It's something Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher have to figure out fast, because you can't. 3 weeks of this now is to the point where something has to change, whatever that is. I mean, they went to heavy personnel. Maybe, put 4 wide receivers out there, spread out the defense, and maybe you run the ball that way. I know what they were trying to do on Sunday. They were trying to go 2 tight ends, put bigger bodies in there, use extra block. What that does is I think it condenses the run game. I think sometimes that's the reason you run out of 4 wide sets, is you spread the field out. They got 6 guys in the box, and it's a much lighter box to run into. Maybe you go that route.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're going to do to get this running game back on track. And it feels like until you're able to do that at least somewhat, Jake Browning's going to be fighting for his life, man. You're really making it hard on him if you can't get him into manageable situations on 2nd and 3rd down. One of the other big topics of conversation that came up this week as it relates to Jake Browning, the offense, was there was a big move at a quarterback spot in New York. The Giants benched Russell Wilson for Jackson Dart. A lot of people are now talking about Russell Wilson's available. Giants probably won't ask much for him. He only costs about $2 million in terms of payroll that you're going to add. What's your response to the Bengals should go get Russell Wilson hype?
This locker room doesn't need a narcissistic, washed up hack. Okay, that's my take on it. I mean, it doesn't. And listen, I know people.
Bengals Nation, let's ride.
Look what he did last week or last year against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Yeah, he dinked and dunked it, and Jermaine Pratt couldn't tackle. Okay. Then the second time they played him, Russell Wilson stunk. The Steelers stunk down the stretch. How did he do in the playoffs? They were terrible. He is washed up. Don't give me 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys. You know what? Cowboys are horrible on defense. Horrible. And 1 week after he had this big game against Dallas, he gets benched. So what does that tell you? They're ready to move on quickly. I get that they're in a complete rebuild mode in New York, but 4 games in, you're starting the rookie already? What's that tell you?
And I think what you just said is the exact experience that you would be hoping for with Russell Wilson. If you went out and got him, the best you can hope for, in my opinion, at this point, is that he has a couple of big games left. Like he's the guy that can still put up a 350-yard passing game with 3 touchdowns. And like he might have those numbers once or twice more throughout the season because you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase around him and Chase Brown and all of that. But to consistently win and a guy that's going to lead you to the playoffs and make you feel like you have a better shot at this thing to contend, he's just not that guy. I mean, he hasn't been that guy for a while, to be quite honest.
Correct. No, I mean, he hasn't. He wasn't that guy in Denver. He wasn't that guy in Pittsburgh. He isn't that guy in New York. So this is not. So the Bengals would be the 4th team for him in the last 3 years. Does that not speak volumes?
And the other part of that is you mentioned the narcissistic thing. I mean, it does seem like people really don't like him. It does seem like his teammates do not enjoy playing with him or want him around. So I just don't know. Yeah, I just don't know about bringing that guy in here.
Yeah, and I will say the Bengals system, Zach Taylor was talking about that he thinks that, hey, our system is easy enough for smart guys to come in and pick up right away. But at the same time, just from a terminology standpoint, why not? But at the same time, you're going to bring a guy in and try to have him pick up your offense and hit the ground running like that. No, you've invested time into Jake Browning, and you believe in Jake. They believe in Jake Browning. They do. He had a bad game. So did everybody else.
I believe that the Bengals front office believes in Jake Browning. The narrative that all his teammates around him are super confident in him, that kind of went out the window for me after last week's performance. I'm like, okay, well, I don't believe
in Jamar Chase anymore. He's not reliable. He fumbles the football.
I get where you're going, but those two guys aren't the same. And I think, look, there's a reality that happens mentally, whether it's subconscious or conscious, that when you lose one of the 3 best players in the NFL and you drop down to a guy who's a backup, you feel differently about it. I mean, you're just going to, and I think we saw some of that. One of the other things that have come up, not just the Russell Wilson trade idea, but insiders have talked about the Bengals possibly fielding calls for Trey Hendrickson. Now, if the Bengals season starts going the wrong way, Trey Hendrickson's got the whole contract thing that's still basically on a year-to-year basis. Do you consider trading him away? At what point would you consider that, Skinny?
Day before the deadline or day of the deadline? I'm waiting until the very last second to do that. I mean, the season would have to go really haywire for that to happen, and it may. And so if it does, yeah, I would consider doing that at the trade deadline if the season going haywire, but I'm sure as heck not doing it today or tomorrow or next week. Even if they lose at Denver, I'm not doing it. Hell, even if they lose to Denver and Detroit, I'm not doing it.
If the 49ers came to you, they lost Bosa. If they came to you and they're like, we'll give you a first and a third this year and a second and 27 for Trey Hendrickson right now, you don't listen to that?
No, I'm not caving on a season at 2-1 because you lost ugly in Minnesota. No.
What else do you have from this week or this current Bengals team? I have 2 other kind of off topics.
No, go ahead. Yeah. I mean, I think we've wrapped that game up.
Okay.
I mean, listen, and I'm not making you fumble 5 times on the road. You are going to probably suffer a historic loss, and they did, and they deserved it.
Yeah.
I mean, they did not deserve to get inside the historic number. They deserved to lose in historical fashion. They did.
I agree with that. Yeah. The turnover battle was it. That was the story of the game. You had no chance after that point, whether it was Joe Burrow out there or Jake Browning.
I wish I could remember Paul Dehner Jr. on Mo Egger's show yesterday. He looked up a stat. I wish I could remember exactly what the number was, but teams that have been -5 turnover margin on the road in the last, whatever the hell it was, 10 years, maybe it's longer than that, whatever it is, are like 3-104. So, I mean,
wait, there's 3 winners. I'm surprised by that.
I am too, actually. But I mean, what does that tell you? And I think he said half of the winners won by 20 points or more. So you lose by 5 turnover margin, you're going to get your ass kicked. And they did.
Yes. One thing that I just found funny, I don't really know what to say about this. I just find it funny. So I was going to bring it up is, do you follow Marty Brennaman on Twitter?
I do not.
So I think his Twitter accounts is one of the more funny things just because he talks like, any one of us or any fan would for the most part. Like he'll fire back at people with snarky responses occasionally. Or in this case, he responded about a Bengals thing where he said, what is unacceptable is Bengals ownership. This football team is a joke, and the main reason is the unwillingness of ownership to spend the money necessary to make this team a contender. As I said, it's a joke. I don't really want to dive into his analysis there. I just think it's funny that Marty Brenneman is like out tweeting things like this still.
Has he fired that same line at Bob Castellini and Reds ownership, where there is no salary cap and you can spend what you want to spend?
It is interesting. I don't think he's gone as hard after them. They did just give him a statue there. So, I mean, it's probably maybe wait a year before he starts going in on the Reds ownership. But
that's a clown take. I mean, they've spent money. You may not agree that they've spent it wisely.
I'm not really arguing the merits of the take. I just think
if you're going to go in on that, Marty, go in on Bob Castellini and his group, would you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think he's been pretty critical of the Reds too, but not to this level, obviously. Yeah. This is I just like that Marty will fire these takes off randomly. And also, it's funny, if you didn't listen to the Reds on radio previously, I don't know that you would necessarily know that Marty Brenneman's gone, like that he's retired and gone. He's been in the local news and media and airwaves and talked about the last few months as much as anyone, I feel.
Yeah, no, I respect the heck out of Marty. I think that's an awful take, to be quite honest with you.
Also, something that was tough to hear for a lot of people, I think, but certainly fans of my age, is Rudy Johnson passed away at the age of 45. If you're in my era, like right in that, mid 30s to 40s range, the Bengals teams that you probably relate most to are those Chad Johnson, Carson Palmer, Rudy Johnson years where they had a little bit of success. And Rudy was he was never the main guy or looked at as the main guy, but he was kind of like the heart and soul, it felt like, for a lot of those teams. I think a lot of people really loved him.
I mean, I did that 25 years of Paycor, the top 25. Rudy was in that group, man. I put him in that top 25. He earned it. I mean, this is a guy that he was a big part of that offense. And, some of the circumstances, it sounds like, of what might have happened to cause his death is really sad. And again, it shows you that football's scary, boy. I mean, I don't think a lot of times, and probably I'm as guilty as anybody else, look at these guys as human, but they are, man. And this sport takes a freaking toll. I know people were critical of Andrew Luck when he retired. He just said, I got tired of rehab and I got tired of having surgery and rehabbing from that surgery. Can't blame him.
And it was this whole thing, right? This scare of what comes later. If I keep letting my brains get battered around and deal with the CTE stuff. Now, I haven't seen confirmation. Do we know exactly what happened, or was it just sort of the rumor that he was dealing with mental health issues and CTE stuff potentially?
It's the latter, but that seems to coincide with potential CTE. I mean, it's
him only being 45. Him only being 45, something happened there.
It's so sad. So I had somebody ask me this question, maybe on Asking Anything, I don't know, a month ago, whatever, said, what was one of the worst takes you ever had? And I will tell you, one of my Rudy Johnson takes back in my radio days was probably one of the worst I ever had. I loved Rudy Johnson in college at Auburn. I mean, I thought this guy is a really good looking back. Then watching him for his early part of the pros, I'm like, he's too slow to ever be a great player. And I think I said that, like, he's too slow to ever be a lead back. Well, I was wrong. I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. I'm glad I was wrong because Rudy was great.
He was slow. I mean, he never looked like your typical running back, but man, he just fell forward every time. You didn't knock that guy back. It was like he's getting 2.5 to 3 yards, even if you hit him at the line of scrimmage. And then a lot of times he went on for more than that. He was just a hard runner, man. I mean,
can you imagine? He holds the Bengals single game record for carries in a game. He carried it 43 times in a game. Can you imagine day and age, handing it to, well, if you handed it to Chase Brown 43 times, he'd get 86 yards at the rate they're going. But can you imagine today's day and age, a back getting 43 carries?
No. Shout out to the big boys like Ron Dane and Rudy Johnson who could tote that rock, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, R.I.P. Rudy Johnson. He was definitely one of my favorite players. I only had 2 jerseys ever during my Bengals fandom. I had a Rudy Johnson orange authentic, and then I had a Chad Johnson black replica jersey at one point. But I was not a jersey guy, but Rudy was my guy. So this was
I think,
to hear that news.
I think there's a lot. I listened to Mo and Paul yesterday. It's kind of a little bit of their generation too, and they kind of had the same sentiment you did. Those always hit everybody the hardest. And it's just if this was anything self-inflicted, it just again shows you how scary this damn game is, and you shouldn't ever forget that.
It is. On one hand, it was like kind of nice to see from a fan's perspective, but I do hate the idea that that thing happens with Rudy Johnson, and all these people are saying all these cool things about him here, about like how much they loved watching him, how much he meant to their childhood, whatever. And that was neat for me to see because it was like relatable. I felt that way too. But then you think about him, and it's like, man, you wish he could have heard all these sentiments because he probably wasn't thinking a lot about that in the last few years.
That's a very good point.